The music shimmered through the grand hall like liquid gold, masking the unease beneath the glitter. Crystal glasses clinked, laughter floated, and Elena Moretti stood among men who wore danger as easily as their tuxedos. She was supposed to be invisible, just another interpreter hired for the gala, but every movement reminded her that invisibility was an illusion. Especially here, in Adrian Vescari's house. He stood near the marble staircase, surrounded by power. Even at a distance, he commanded attention, his silence louder than the orchestra's crescendo. People said he could end a man's life with a nod, but tonight, he smiled, charming, almost human. Almost. Elena avoided his gaze, focused on her clipboard, her translations, the weight of her own pulse. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She hesitated, this wasn't the place, but curiosity won. She turned away from the chandelier's light and lifted the phone to her ear. Pronto? A man's voice answered, hurried, low, distinctly Italian. Her breath caught. She hadn't spoken that language aloud in years. It tasted like memories she'd buried under new accents. No, non posso parler adesso, she whispered, moving toward the shadowed edge of the terrace. Ti richiamerò più tardi. Non ca. The moment she hung up, the air changed. She felt it, like a shift in gravity. When she turned, Adrian Vescari was watching her. His expression unreadable, eyes dark as wet stone. Around him, his men had gone still. He crossed the hall slowly, every step deliberate. You speak Italian beautifully, he said when he reached her. His voice was quiet, but it carried the kind of weight that silenced the room. I'm a translator, she answered, steady, even as her hands trembled around her phone. For whom? His gaze drifted to the number flashing on her screen before it went dark. That call wasn't business, was it? Her throat tightened. Personal. A pause stretched between them. The orchestra faltered, recovered. Adrian's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Who are you, Signorina? Elena. Elena Moretti. That name, her name, hung between them like a fuse. His eyes sharpened. Moretti, he repeated, quietly, as though testing a ghost. Then, to one of his men, without breaking eye contact, find out who she is. Don't let her leave. A murmur spread through the crowd as security moved subtly, forming a wall of polite smiles and black suits. Panic rose in Elena's chest. Excuse me, she demanded, forcing a calm she didn't feel. I'm working. You have no right. Adrian stepped closer, close enough that she caught the faint scent of bergamot and gunpowder. No right? His tone softened. You answered a call in my language, using a name that doesn't belong to anyone safe. So forgive me if I'm cautious. Something inside her broke through fear, anger, fierce and foolish. Maybe the world doesn't revolve around your suspicions, Signore Vescari. A muscle flickered in his jaw, the ghost of amusement. No. But sometimes it revolves around truth. He turned and gestured for her to follow. She didn't have a choice. The crowd parted, whispering, eyes following as he led her down a quiet corridor lined with old portraits. The air cooled. The sound of the gala faded until it was just their footsteps and her heart. In his study, the light was low and golden, the scent of old paper and smoke filling the room. He motioned toward a chair. She stayed standing. You worked for the ambassador? He asked. Yes. Before that? Her silence was answer enough. He circled behind his desk, every movement precise. I know a Moretti family. Once powerful in Naples. Their company, Moretti Imports, burned down after some unfortunate misunderstandings. She looked at the floor. I have nothing to do with them. He leaned forward, hands clasped. Then why does your phone link to one of their numbers? The question hit like a slap. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. He studied her, eyes narrowing slightly, not with cruelty, but curiosity. You're frightened, he said softly. But not of me. Who called you? Elena shook her head. I told you it was personal. Everything's personal in my world. He rose, coming around the desk until he stood a breath away. Say something else. In Italian. She frowned. Why? Because I want to hear the truth in your voice. She hesitated, then whispered, Non ho nulla di nascondere. I have nothing to hide. He stared at her for a long time, expression unreadable, before saying, Lies sound prettier in that language. Before she could respond, a sharp sound cracked the silence. Gunfire, distant but close enough to rattle the windows. Adrian's head snapped toward the noise. In a second, he was all command, shouting orders in rapid Italian. Men flooded the hall outside. The mansion's glittering calm dissolved into chaos. Elena backed away, pulse hammering. What's happening? Stay here, he ordered, but she didn't move fast enough. A second gunshot rang, closer now, and the chandelier above them shuddered. He turned and reached her in 2 strides, pulling her down behind the desk as glass rained from the ceiling. The scent of gunpowder filled the air, sharp and electric. For a heartbeat, they stayed there, pressed together, his arm around her shoulders. His breath was hot against her temple. You're safe, he murmured, as if promising himself more than her. The shooting stopped as quickly as it began. His men's voices echoed in the hall, shouting, checking, securing. Adrian rose, still keeping one hand on her arm, steadying her. That, he said, almost calmly, was a message. My rivals like to remind me I'm mortal. Elena's voice shook. And me? Was I just collateral? He met her gaze. Not tonight. He turned to Marco, who had just entered, weapon drawn. Lock down the estate. No one leaves until I say. Then, looking back at Elena, he said quietly, almost to himself, especially her. The words were soft, but final, command disguised as care, prison disguised as protection, and though the gunfire had stopped, Elena felt the danger had only just begun. Morning arrived shrouded in silence, broken only by the rhythmic hiss of the sea below the cliffs. Elena woke to the soft glow of light filtering through heavy curtains and the distant murmur of men speaking Italian outside her door. Her pulse quickened. The room wasn't hers, it was too elegant, too still. A tray of untouched breakfast sat on a silver cart beside the bed, its steam long faded. Someone had left her clothes folded neatly on a chair, as though she were an honored guest or a prisoner they intended to keep comfortable. She rose carefully, testing the locked handle. No escape. Only the vast balcony beyond, where the sea stretched endless and blue, mocking her with freedom she couldn't reach. Her reflection in the glass startled her, dark circles shadowed her eyes, but there was defiance too, something she hadn't seen in years. The door opened without warning. Adrian Vescari stood framed in the threshold, every inch composed control. His presence filled the room, not loud but absolute. You slept well, I hope, he said, though his tone made it sound like a test, as well as anyone can under surveillance, she replied, crossing her arms. He almost smiled. You're sharper today. I've had time to remember who I am. Then tell me, he said softly, who is that? exactly? Their eyes locked. The question hung between them, intimate and dangerous. She looked away first, moving toward the window. Someone who shouldn't be here. He came closer, his reflection joining hers in the glass. Perhaps. But you are. A pause. The tension between them thickened, a strange mix of fear and fascination. She wanted to hate him, to see only the man who had trapped her, but his voice, low and deliberate, pulled at something inside her she couldn't name. "I'm not your enemy," he said at last. "But you haven't convinced me you're harmless either." "Harmless people don't interest you," she shot back. He laughed quietly. True. The sound unsettled her more than his threats. It was warm, almost human. Then he gestured toward the tray. "Eat something." "I dislike interrogating the faint-hearted." "I'm not hungry." "Then drink the coffee. It's Sicilian. Bitter. Honest." Despite herself, she did. The first sip scalded, grounding her. He watched her with a kind of patience that felt studied, like a man measuring the distance between trust and danger. "You said your name is Elena Moretti," he began. "There was a Moretti once, a man I owed a debt to." "Perhaps you're related." She froze. "My father's dead." "Is he?" Adrian asked quietly. "Or did he vanish the same year my accountant disappeared with €2 million and a promise to deliver him to the police?" She turned sharply. "You think I'm here because of that?" "I think coincidences don't exist in my world." For a moment, anger flared through her fear. "Not everything is about your world," she said. "Some of us are just trying to survive it." Something flickered in his expression, regret, maybe, or respect. He stepped back. "Fair enough. But survival here requires honesty. And whether you admit it or not, you've walked back into a past that never forgave betrayal." He left then, closing the door softly behind him. Hours passed. The silence of the villa pressed against her until she could hardly breathe. Through the balcony doors, she saw men patrolling the grounds, the glint of guns at their sides. Somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered that the danger outside might be safer than the uncertainty within. At sunset, a knock sounded. Marco entered, a man built like quiet steel, Adrian's shadow in everything but temperament. He brought her a phone, screen black. "Boss wants you to translate a call," he said. She hesitated. "For who?" "Someone important." When she refused, he didn't argue, only sighed. "You're making things harder for yourself." "Then maybe you should stop helping him make them harder for me." That earned a faint smirk. "You have fire. Careful, it's what gets people killed around here." Later, when she was alone again, the lights flickered. Then the power went out entirely, plunging the room into darkness. She fumbled for her phone, dead. The storm outside had rolled in fast, lightning flashing over the sea. She lit a candle from the tray's matches and stepped into the hall. The villa, stripped of electricity, felt ancient. Shadows stretched across paintings and marble floors, every echo amplified. Somewhere below, the faint strains of a piano reached her ears, notes uneven. Searching, she followed the sound to the main hall. There, in the faint candlelight, sat Adrian. His fingers moved slowly over the keys, coaxing a melody both haunting and fragile. He didn't look up when she entered, but his voice, low and rough, drifted toward her. "Do you play?" She hesitated. "I used to." He gestured to the space beside him. "Show me." She wanted to refuse. Instead, she sat, her hand brushing his by accident. A spark, literal or imagined, shot through her. She began to play, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence, the music wrapping around them like smoke. When she stopped, he said quietly, "You play like someone who remembers loss." She met his gaze, caught in it. "And you listen like someone who caused it." For a long time, neither spoke. The storm raged beyond the windows, and the candle between them trembled, its flame bending toward him. Finally, he whispered, "If you're telling the truth, I'll protect you. But if you're lying, I'm not." He nodded once, though doubt lingered in his eyes. Then Marco appeared at the doorway, breathless, rain dripping from his coat. "Adrian," he said, voice taut, "we have a problem." Luciano de Santos sent word. The name sliced through the air. Adrian rose slowly. "What does he want?" Marco's gaze shifted toward Elena, then back. "He knows about her." Adrian's expression hardened, all traces of humanity gone. He turned to Elena, and for the first time, she saw something colder than suspicion in his face: fear. Not for himself. For her. "Whatever truth you're hiding," he said, voice low and sharp, "it just got dangerous." Lightning split the sky behind him, illuminating his silhouette like a warning. And in that brief, brilliant flash, Elena understood, whatever had started with a phone call was about to drag them both into something far darker than either could control. The storm had not passed, it had merely settled inside the walls. Rain lashed the windows of Adrian's villa, and every gust of wind seemed to carry another whisper of threat. Elena stood in the dim corridor, the echoes of Marco's warning still twisting in her mind. Luciano de Santos knows about her, the name alone carried the taste of ruin. She didn't need to ask who he was. She saw the reaction in Adrian's eyes, the shift from control to fury. For the next 2 days, the villa became a fortress. Guards moved like shadows through the halls, radios murmuring in low Italian. Adrian worked behind closed doors, phone pressed to his ear, voice edged with steel. Whenever she passed him, he gave her a look that was both protective and possessive, like she had somehow become a secret too costly to lose. She wanted answers. Fear was one thing, but silence was unbearable. On the third night, when the villa finally fell quiet, she crept down the west wing toward the archive room she'd once glimpsed. The heavy oak door was ajar. Inside, rows of leather-bound ledgers glimmered under the faint glow of a single desk lamp. She shouldn't have entered, but curiosity felt safer than ignorance. Dust motes danced as she flipped through old photos, men in suits, champagne, blood beneath smiles. Then one picture stopped her cold, a younger Adrian, arms slung around another man. Her father, her breath caught. He looked happy, alive, in a way she barely remembered. Scrawled beneath the photo, Adrian and Giovanni Moretti, 2009, Elena. She froze. Adrian stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here." Her fingers tightened on the photograph. "You knew him." "I knew of him." "That's a lie." She stepped forward, holding up the image. "You were friends." He exhaled, long and tired, and closed the door behind him. "He saved my life once," he said quietly. "Then he stole from me. From my family. And disappeared." She shook her head. "My father wasn't a thief." Then he was a fool, Adrian snapped, the mask of composure cracking for the first time. Because his choices got people killed. The words landed like blows. She looked down at the photograph trembling in her hand, torn between fury and disbelief. You think I'm here to finish what he started? I don't know what to think anymore. His voice softened, but his eyes remained wary. You walked into my world the night someone used your name to reach me. That's not coincidence, it's a message. From whom? Before he could answer, the lights flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed them whole. Adrian drew his gun without hesitation. Stay behind me. The silence that followed was dense and alive. Then, footsteps. 2 floors below. A crash. Shouts in Italian. The sound of breaking glass. DeSantis, Adrian muttered. He's here. He caught her wrist and pulled her toward the service corridor. They moved fast, his grip firm but not cruel. Every turn echoed with chaos, men shouting, gunfire muffled by rain. She stumbled once, but he steadied her with a hand at her back. Keep your head down, he ordered, voice low, almost gentle. They reached the cellar stairs. He stopped suddenly, eyes narrowing at a faint red light blinking in the dark. Security alarm disabled. His expression changed. He's inside already. Before Elena could speak, the air erupted. A figure lunged from the shadows, striking Adrian hard. The gun clattered away. She screamed as the 2 men fought, violent, wordless, primal. Then a gunshot ripped through the air. The attacker fell, lifeless. Marco stood behind him, weapon smoking. Boss, he said, panting. They've taken the north side. You need to move now. Adrian nodded, chest heaving. Get her out. Marco looked at Elena, then away. There's something you should know before we go. His voice faltered. I told DeSantis about her. Adrian froze. You what? I thought he wanted to protect her. I thought she was in danger from you. Rage and betrayal flashed across Adrian's face. You've just delivered her to the only man who wants her dead. Before Marco could respond, a bullet shattered the wine rack behind them. They ducked. Another shot tore through the air, and Marco grunted, hit in the shoulder. Go, he barked, clutching the wound. Get her to the docks, he's after her, not you. Adrian hesitated, torn between loyalty and survival. Marco's voice hardened. Don't waste it. I'll hold them. He dragged Elena toward the hidden exit. The tunnel smelled of damp earth and salt. Her lungs burned as they ran, splashing through puddles, the echo of gunfire fading behind them. When they burst into the open air, the rain had turned to mist. The harbor loomed ahead, black water reflecting the pale moon. For a moment, it felt like escape, then headlights flared from the road. A van swerved across their path. Men stepped out, faces masked, guns raised. Adrian shoved Elena behind him. Stay down. Adrian, he turned, meeting her eyes with startling calm. If they take you, fight. Don't let them see fear. But it was too late. Someone struck her from behind. Pain exploded across her vision, and the world went dark. When she woke, she was bound to a chair in a vast, echoing warehouse. Rain drummed on the metal roof. A man's silhouette emerged from the shadows, tall, broad, elegant in a tailored coat. His voice slid through the air like oil. So, he said in accented English, the translator speaks fluent Italian. just like her father. Luciano DeSantis stepped into the light, smiling without warmth. Her blood ran cold. "What do you want from me?" He crouched to meet her eyes. "Answers. The kind your father took to his grave. And if I don't have them? Then you'll serve another purpose." Behind him, one of his men handed over a phone. DeSantis dialed, waited. When he spoke, his tone was almost playful. "Vescary," he said, "if you want her alive, come alone." Midnight. The old docks. Elena's breath caught at the sound of Adrian's voice faintly breaking through the receiver, controlled but deadly. "If you touch her, I'll bury you myself." DeSantis ended the call with a smirk. "Let's see how much she's worth to him." As the men left her in the dark, the sea wind howled through the broken windows, carrying the scent of Sultan iron. Somewhere out there, she knew Adrian was already coming, and that the moment he did, neither of them would leave untouched. The night clung to the docks like smoke, heavy with rain and the metallic tang of the sea. Waves struck the pylons in rhythmic violence, echoing the pulse hammering in Adrian's chest as he stepped from the black car. The headlights died behind him, leaving only moonlight fractured on the slick wood. He came alone, as ordered, though every instinct screamed against it. In his coat pocket, his fingers rested on the cold weight of his pistol. Ahead, shadows moved within the warehouse. Luciano DeSantis and his men, predators waiting for a reckoning. Inside, the air was colder, thick with the damp stench of salt and gasoline. Chains hung from the beams like relics of forgotten crimes. At the center of the room, Elena sat bound to a chair, her hair damp, her wrists raw from rope. When she lifted her head and saw him, her breath hitched, half relief, half disbelief. He looked different in the dim light, the mask of the Mafia boss stripped away, leaving only a man who had already decided to die for something. DeSantis emerged from the shadows with a smirk. "You're punctual. I appreciate that in a man about to lose everything." Adrian's voice was low, lethal. "Let her go, and I'll make your death quick." DeSantis laughed softly. "Still pretending you have control? You always overestimate your power, Vescary. Just like your father did." "Careful." But DeSantis only waved a hand. "Your pride blinded you both. She's the last reminder of that, Giovanni Moretti's daughter. I thought taking her might feel like vengeance, but now," his gaze drifted toward Elena. "Now I see why you care. She's exquisite in her fear." Adrian moved before the words finished, gun drawn, eyes burning. "Touch her again, and you'll drown before you can beg." DeSantis lifted his own weapon, grinning. "Then let's see who begs first." The warehouse erupted. Gunfire shattered the silence, sparks flying as bullets tore through metal and glass. Adrian dove behind a crate, returning fire with deadly precision. Two of DeSantis's men fell, the rest scattered, shouting over the roar of rain. Elena struggled against her bindings, desperate, the ropes biting deeper. "Adrian," she cried, voice breaking. He glanced toward her, just for a second, and pain exploded across his shoulder. He staggered but didn't fall. Blood seeped through his coat, dark against darker fabric. DeSantis advanced, weapon steady, a predator savoring the final strike. Then a new sound cut through the chaos, a car engine outside, growing louder. The doors burst open, and Marco stumbled in, drenched, one arm in a makeshift sling. He fired without hesitation, hitting the man aiming for Adrian. "Didn't think I'd let you die alone, boss," he rasped. Adrian's jaw tightened. "You should have stayed away." Too late. Marco's grin was faint, bloody. I owed you one. The distraction was enough. Adrian fired again, hitting DeSantis's gun hand. The weapon clattered to the ground. The rival boss roared, charging, and the two men collided in a brutal blur of fists and fury. Adrian drove him backward against a rusted pillar, the impact ringing through the warehouse. DeSantis swung wildly, connecting once enough to split Adrian's lip, but rage gave Adrian strength. You ruined everything you touched, Adrian hissed, forcing him down. This ends now. With one final strike, he sent DeSantis sprawling near the edge of the dock. The boards groaned beneath their weight. DeSantis reached for his fallen pistol, but Adrian kicked it away, and the wood gave way beneath them both. The sea swallowed them in a single, violent motion. Elena screamed his name, her voice lost in the storm. She tore at her ropes until the fibers cut into her skin, finally breaking free. Marco staggered toward the edge, shouting for Adrian, but the water below churned black, endless seconds stretched like eternity. Then, through the darkness, a shape broke the surface. Adrian, dragging DeSantis's limp body with one arm, gasping as he fought the current. He reached the pier's ladder, pulling himself up inch by inch, soaked and trembling. Elena ran to him, falling to her knees beside him as he collapsed onto the wet boards. He coughed seawater, blood, and laughter all at once. I told you not to leave, he rasped. You shouldn't have come, she whispered, pressing her hands to the wound in his shoulder. Couldn't help it. You still owe me a translation. His smile was weak, but it was real. Marco knelt beside them, face pale. DeSantis? Adrian looked toward the dark waves. Gone. Sirens wailed in the distance, police, or enemies. It didn't matter anymore. For the first time, he felt the weight of everything he had built pressing down on him, all the blood and silence and power that had bought him nothing but ghosts. Elena cupped his face in her trembling hands. You're bleeding too much. He caught her wrist gently. I've bled worse. That doesn't make it right. For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain softened to mist, the sirens faded. Around them, the seaside against the shore, restless but calm. Why did you save me? She finally asked. He closed his eyes, breath shallow but steady. Because you made me remember I was human. She leaned closer, tears mingling with the rain on his skin. Then stay that way. Please. He opened his eyes again, finding hers steady, fierce, alive. Nani ani andromai, finch me garderai kosi, she whispered. I'll never leave, as long as you look at me like that, he smiled faintly. Then I guess we're both cursed. When dawn came, the sea glowed gold. The fire of the night was gone, leaving behind only smoke and silence. Adrian stood on the balcony of the villa, his arm bound, Elena beside him wrapped in his coat. Below them, the horizon stretched infinite and clean. You could still run, he murmured, so could you. He turned to her, and something in his gaze, something unguarded, made her heart stumble. I think I've done enough running for one lifetime. She smiled softly. Then maybe it's time to start living instead. He looked at her for a long moment, then leaned closer, his lips brushing her temple in a promise rather than a kiss. With you, maybe that's possible. The world beyond the window was still dangerous, still broken, but for the first time, it felt survivable. As sunlight spilled across the sea, Elena reached for his hand, their fingers entwining with quiet finality. Maybe the universe, she said, her voice barely a whisper, speaks Italian after all. He laughed under his breath, the sound low and warm, and together they watched the morning rise over Sicily, two survivors bound by a language neither had meant to share, and a story neither could ever escape. Thank you so much for listening. If you felt her heartbeat in every word, don't forget to follow for more stories like this.